Welcome to Whiskey Cast, cask strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie. This is episode number 1098 for March 2nd, 2025. Coming up in a few minutes.
On Islay, you have committees for everything, Mark. For the shoes you wear, the glasses you wear, the hens you keep, everything. And we decided to form our own committee to bring like-minded people together, and basically the premise was that Ardbeg's doors would never close again.
2025 marks the 25th anniversary of the Ardbeg Committee. Some 200,000 Ardbeg lovers from all over the world, and there's a special committee released to celebrate the anniversary, Ardbeg Eureka. Ardbeg's Jackie Thomson joins me later on Whiskey Cast in Depth. She chairs the committee and runs visitor operations at the distillery. I'll also have the What I'm Tasting This Week department, behind the label, and much more. The news is next on this week's Whiskey Cast.
The second release in Dewar's four-part collector series, Dewar's Double Double 38-Year-Old, is now available. It's a tribute to the Scottish Highlands, and it's like nothing you've had before. More in a minute.
Let's get started with the week's news. It's brought to you by the Dalmore. Keep in mind that this could change on a moment's notice, but the Trump administration is set to impose trade tariffs on Canada and Mexico again on Tuesday. That follows a 30-day delay in the tariffs while the U.S. negotiated tougher border policies with both countries. The 25% tariffs would affect almost all imports from both countries, including Canadian whiskey and Mexican tequila. That would raise prices for U.S. consumers, since tariffs are a tax paid by the U.S. company importing goods from another country. Both Canada and Mexico have threatened to retaliate with tariffs of their own targeting American bourbon and other exports, and 6 Canadian provinces have pledged to remove U.S. whiskeys and other spirits from their provincial liquor stores if the U.S. follows through on its tariff threat. Once again, this is a fast-changing story. We'll keep you updated at whiskycast.com during the week. In other news, Diageo CEO Deborah Crew told investors and analysts this week that the liquor industry is going through a cyclical downturn, not a structural one with long-term implications, and says Diageo is best positioned to get through that cycle. She says 600 million new legal drinking-age consumers will enter the market over the next 5 years, with a resulting increase in consumer spending. Crew also expects premiumization to continue, as well as spending on international spirits, and cited the fact that Diageo has 13 different billion-dollar brands in its portfolio. Bushmills owner Beckley reported a 21.3% drop in net income for 2024 compared to 2023, with North American sales hit hard by destocking and lower sales. The Mexico-based company forecast modest gains this year. MGP Ingredients also expects a rough year. The company cut its sales forecasts for the year by nearly $200 million and blames industry-wide whiskey barrel inventories for lagging sales. The company also reported a 16% decline in fourth-quarter sales compared to a year ago. Elsewhere, Buffalo Trace is bringing back its 100 Bourbon Sets for 100 Charities program again this year. The distillery is taking applications from charities in the U.S. through June, and the charities that are selected will hold their own fundraising programs with a set of Buffalo Trace whiskeys. We have a link for more details in the show notes for this episode at whiskycast.com. Jack Daniel's is releasing its oldest whiskey in more than 100 years. The new 14-year-old barrel-proof Tennessee whiskey is reminiscent of the 14-year-old that Jack Daniel produced before Prohibition hit Tennessee in 1909. Master distiller Chris Fletcher says it's an honor to recreate one of Jack Daniel's historic whiskeys.
It's one of the most rewarding things, really, that I've ever done in whiskey in my 20-something years in distilleries. To be able to say things like, we're doing a whiskey, putting a product together that hasn't been done in Lynchburg, Tennessee since Jack Daniel did it himself is, it's one of the things that, as a distiller, you just have to pinch yourself.
The 14-year-old joins the 10 and 12-year-old Jacks in the distillery's Aged series, and there are plans for 18 and 21-year-old versions in the future as aged stocks become available. I'll have my tasting notes for the 14-year-old later on. Other new whiskeys of note this week, Heaven Hill has released the year's first batch of Bernheim barrel-proof wheat whiskey. It's bottled at 62.7% ABV. I'll have my tasting notes for it soon at whiskycast.com. Michter's has unveiled its latest release of US1 barrel-proof rye. The single-barrel rye has an average proof of 55.25% ABV, and it's priced at $120 a bottle. Rebel Bourbon has released a limited edition bourbon as part of its partnership with NASCAR driver Kyle Busch. The Kyle Busch 108 limited edition is a 4-year-old wheated single-barrel bourbon, with each barrel being selected by Busch and master distiller John Rempe. It'll carry a recommended retail price of $39.99 a bottle. Lost Lantern is focusing on finishes with its Spring 2025 collection. It features 6 bottlings from 6 different distilleries across 5 states, with 5 single-cask bottlings and a single distillery release. That one is from the New York Distilling Company. It's a 7-year-old rye finished in apple brandy casks. Prices range from $80 to $100 a bottle. The collection will be available starting April 2nd. Finally, Whiskey Magazine handed out its final Regional Icons of Whiskey winners the other night in Dublin. Boann Distillery was named the Irish Whiskey Distiller of the Year, while Killowen Distillery was named Craft Producer of the Year. Blackwater Distillery's John Wilcox was named Master Distiller/Blender of the Year, and Roe & Co. in Dublin was named Visitor Attraction of the Year. The global winners will be announced later this month on the eve of Whiskey Live London, and you'll find a link to the complete list of award winners in the show notes for this episode at whiskycast.com. That's also where you can keep up on the latest whiskey news all week long. The news is brought to you by the Dalmore.
Hello, Richard Patterson here, Master Distiller, Master Blender for the Dalmore. You know, whenever the team and I are in the world sharing our exceptional single malt, we like to keep in touch with Mark Gillespie and the latest news from WhiskyCast.
Let's check the calendar and see what's happening around the world of whiskey. The Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. Whiskey Walks take place this coming Saturday, March 8th. The Dornoch Castle Hotel in Dornoch, Scotland has a Glenallachie tasting on the 22nd. The Brandy Library in New York City has an exceptional Scotch Spirit School coming up on March 25th, and Whiskey Live London takes place March 28th and 29th. The Newcastle Whiskey Festival is on the 29th, along with Big Smoke Meets Whiskey Fest in Tampa, Florida. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendars at whiskycast.com and the WhiskyCast community app.
Dewar's Double Double 38-year-old is the second release in a 4-part limited edition collector series honoring Scotland's most legendary whiskey regions. This rare blended malt, a tribute to the Upper Scottish Highlands, is crafted from nearly 4-decade-old Highland and Islay whiskies. It undergoes Dewar's unique 4-stage aging process with a final finish in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks from the prestigious Royal Brackla single malt. The finish invites you to explore your own tasting notes, but for me, there's incredible depth, with rich layers of vanilla, toasted cereals, dried figs, plums, dark chocolate, and a subtle hint of Islay smoke, all beautifully balanced. To truly elevate this tasting experience, renowned chef Gabriel Cruther, in collaboration with Dewar's, has created an exclusive selection of custom chocolates. Crafted from the world's finest ingredients, each piece is infused with a few precious drops of Dewar's Double Double 38-year-old whiskey, making this a luxurious and unforgettable pairing. Now available, this exquisite pairing of whiskey and chocolate promises to deliver an unforgettable experience. Please drink responsibly. Copyright 2024. Dewar's is a trademark. Imported by John Dewar & Sons Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Blended Scotch whiskey, 48.8% alcohol by volume.
Ardbeg is one of those Islay whiskies that gets a reaction no matter what. Either you love its peaty character or you hate it. but there are thousands of people around the world who love it so much that they've joined the Ardbeg Committee, the distillery's virtual fan club. The committee celebrates its 25th anniversary this year. Jackie Thomson chairs the committee and is Ardbeg's manager of visitor operations. She's also busy with the final phase of work on the Ardbeg Hotel that will open later this year in Port Ellen. We spent some time the other day on a Zoom call. Well, let's talk about 25 years of the Ardbeg Committee. How did it originally start?
So it's a force of nature now, but back in the day, when the distillery was a little bit less tended, we started the Ardbeg Committee primarily because on Islay you have committees for everything, Mark, for the shoes you wear, the glasses you wear, the hens you keep, everything. And we decided to form our own committee to bring like-minded people together. And basically the premise was that Ardbeg's doors would never close again. So that was back in the year 2000, 25 years ago. And here we are celebrating 25 years of that wonderful tribe.
What exactly is the committee?
The committee is a group of like-minded individuals. I think often when you come to whisky alone, and often in tasting something, in visiting somewhere, in finding yourself in a group of people, you leave together. And I think for me, that's what the committee is. It's a group of very like-minded whisky lovers from all over the world. They love Ardbeg and they share the love of a smoky malt and tend to connect with each other, which I think is really beautiful. Back in 2000, we never thought about the networks of people that would bring together. But for me, that's what the committee is, a great fan base.
And you've had people from all over the world join the committee, right?
All over the world. I think we are now a band still going strong, but of 200,000 people, which is quite something. I do remember back in the day knowing people's names, the first 1,000 or so. We knew their names individually, but about 200,000 people from about 180 countries all over the world. So it's quite extraordinary.
And they've all come to visit the distillery at some point or another.
Everyone, luckily not all at the same time, Mark, or else we might have capacity issues, which is a very now phrase. But they beat their path to the door to visit Islay, their Islay files, and will come to visit Ardbeg as well. Adorned in often their committee gear with their committee rules and regulations in their pockets.
What do committee members get to do at the distillery that civilians don't?
They, when committee members arrive and tell us they're a committee member, we will often whisk them away to a deep, dark part of the distillery for a little dram that nobody else might taste. And I think the thing with committee members is so often, tourism and visiting distilleries used to be quite a transient thing, and it's not anymore. Committee members will return 3-4 times a year, and always what you want to do is give them a slightly different experience. So you might take them down to the end of the pier, just to have a wee moment. You'll spend a little bit of time in the still house with the stillman. You might take a little wander up to the top of the hill and show them a spot where photographs are taken that nobody else usually would think of. So I think it's just that experientially, giving people a slightly different experience of when they come to visit the distillery. So there's always something. The team knows so many committee members, and that's forged out of a love of whiskey, but also it becomes more of a friendship, which is very special.
And you've made many friends through the committee, right?
Yeah, tons. And back in the day, I'm an old hand, but looking into the future, if I had a crystal ball, there are things that you wish that you could have. I wish I'd written it all down more and things, but making friends and forging these bonds over a glass of single malt whiskey, or just a sense of place. Whiskey tourism was all about, you saw a place and you thought, oh, I'll go knock on the door. It wasn't really quite as experiential as it is now. So yeah, friendships have been vitally important and beautifully formed.
What was the first committee bottling? Do you remember?
First committee bottling. Now you're getting me. The first committee bottling back in 1998. No, I can't remember. That's terrible, isn't it, Mark?
No, I mean, there's been so many since over the years, so.
There have been so many from, the 21-year-old Manager's Choice Committee bottlings all the way through all the supernovas. We have much more recent committee bottlings. We had Galileo's Alligators. We've had a lot of committee bottlings through the years.
And the latest one is Eureka. Tell me about it.
Eureka. Yeah, over the years, committee members are willing to give feedback. They want to give feedback and they want to be invested in the drams and the whiskey that you actually make. And this is, having listened to, we released the 17-year-old last year, I guess primarily because we were listening to committee members saying, oh, bring it back, bring it back. But this is the first time that we've done something which really has involved them being tangibly there to choose the makeup of the whiskey. So designed by them back at a festival day in 2022, which was the year that we did Heavy Vapors as a committee bottling. But we invited 70 like-minded Ardbeg committee members and lovers from all over the world, chosen by the team and the markets, people that we knew that were very invested. And we invited them to the West Maltings at the distillery, a secret location. We adorned them in white suits and white lab jackets. White suits would have been John Travolta. That would have been Saturday Night Fever, wouldn't it? So lab coats were more appropriate. Lab coats and big goggles. But inside the malt barn, we had set up this wonderful setup with test tubes with Gillian MacDonald, our wonderful, wonderful whiskey creator. We had some different samples. We had a big drink tank with 5 glass panels on it. And basically what we asked them to do was to taste through these individual samples and really, really delve deep and deep into them. Aromatically, olfactorily, of course, taste, smell, the appearance of the whiskey, and really what they were coming up with their own tasting notes. Somebody was tasked in their own individual groups to write the tasting notes on these glass panels and drink in this drink tank. And basically the outcome of that was that a couple of years later, we have put together a whiskey which has been designed by them because we used what they loved the most, and that was PX casks. It was Pedro Jimenez casks, beautiful sweet casks, and the whiskey creators, Bill and Gillian, went away and have utilized their incredible skill in order to bring us this incredible whiskey.
And it's available now.
It's available as of tomorrow. I think it's been available in the US and it's available in different markets from the 27th of February, which is tomorrow. So we have a wee launch on Isla tomorrow, which is exciting.
What are you going to do?
What are we going to do? Well, Mark, we've had a bit of a traumatic few weeks because we had a horrible storm.
I heard about this.
Yeah, it was a really nasty one. Periodically they come, and I think because we're coastal, the sea can be breached and it can get very windy. So we just had a little bit of damage on the distillery. One of the roofs of the West Maltings came off. So we've had to do a little bit of repair on that. So we are camped out. We put a wee pop-up in a local hotel. So all the team have been down there welcoming all the visitors that are around. So we're going to have a few wee Eureka moments and tastings tomorrow, with locals and visitors alike.
How did this affect the visitor operations?
The visitor operations had to cease for a while. We had to get in touch with everybody who was coming over, but we very, very quickly did a pop-up. We managed to get this lovely little pop-up together down in the village. And we got in contact with everyone who was coming for tours and tasting. So it's been really nicely frequented by everybody. We couldn't give them a tour around the distillery. We just had to make triply, quadruply certain that the distillery was safe. So the scaffolding is up and will be open again on the 10th of March and ready for action.
What are you going to do with the pieces of the roof?
Oh, who knows what we'll do? We've got a wonderful mechanical engineer here who can build anything from anything. He built the most incredible barbecue last year from, I don't know, just bits and pieces that he had found lying around the distillery. And so he built this fabulous barbecue. So they might be put to good use.
You can always sell them as pieces of the distillery as souvenirs.
Oh, we could do that. I'm sure we wouldn't do that, Mark. Probably one of the local crofters or farmers will want to use the tin on his roof. It's more resourceful than that.
Yeah.
We're very resourceful here in Islay, you know.
We should talk about Ardbeg House, too, because I know that you're getting ready to open it up later this year.
We are. We're very excited. The Ardbeg House, actually, some of the team are here today. It's going to be a fabulous establishment full of Ardbegian quirky wit and intelligence and colour and vibrancy. There are 12 rooms with individual names, which are kind of give you a nod and a wink to Isla's history. So it's really rooted in community and landscape, and it's going to be great fun. We're looking forward to it.
What will people see when they visit Ardbeg House?
What will they see? The fabric of the building is going to stay from the exterior much the same, but they're going to see a lot of colour. They're going to see a lot of beautiful artifacts from the distillery that are going to go down as well. We're going to make it a real kind of home from home. Ardbeg is quite a visual distillery, the interior, and this is what we want to make it a real aromatically and visually a real treat for committee members, for locals in the bar and the restaurant. And it's just going to be a really wonderful place to be able to eat, drink and play.
And of course, the bar will have the best selection of Ardbegs on the planet, right?
You just said it, Mark. You just said it. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah, we'll have a wonderful bar, and people will be able to try all manner of Ardbegs, past, present, and maybe future.
What was Ardbeg like back in the days when you and Stuart were bringing it back to life?
It's funny because we've just had a storm a month ago, and I very, very much remember in 1998 we had a very similar storm when the distillery wasn't quite as robust as it is now, and it was a bit more vulnerable, and all the roofs came off. It was a real nasty, nasty storm. Ardbeg was and still is. It's a place of great beauty, but it was held together with, bits of string. It was very, it needed tended, it needed loved, it needed equipment, it needed infrastructure. The spirit has always been strong. And when I say that, I mean liquid spirit, but the spirit of previous incumbents of both the distillery and the village. You always felt that was really, really strong. You look at maps of the distillery and you see the houses that were once here, and you're very, very aware of the legacy of what you're looking after, albeit for a short time. And that's all we're doing. Let's face it. We can pretend that it's more, but it's not really. We're guarding something which for a couple of 100 years makes you feel quite humbled by it. So yeah, it's changed. But I don't know if the heart of its spirit has changed that much. The spirit runs might be a little longer, a little shorter. Fermentation times might be different. The still house is bigger, but if you talk about a distillery and it's kind of raison d'etre, it feels pretty strong.
Thanks to Ardbeg's Jackie Thomson for joining us this week on WhiskyCast In Depth. You'll find my tasting notes for the Ardbeg Eureka in last week's episode. I've been fighting a cold for the last few days, so the What I'm Tasting This Week department is somewhat abbreviated this week. I did get to taste the Jack Daniel's 14-year-old Tennessee whiskey I mentioned during the news. It's bottled at barrel strength, 63.15% ABV, and the nose has baking spices, a soft oakiness, milk chocolate, molasses, honey, and vanilla notes. The taste is dry and astringent with dark chocolate, black pepper, cinnamon, leather, polished oak, and a hint of pipe tobacco. The finish, long and dry with a hint of butterscotch. I'm scoring the first release of Jack Daniel's 14-year-old a 93. Bardstown Bourbon Company kicked off a new distillery series of releases this week with the Cathedral French Oak finish. It's finished in 300-year-old French oak barrels harvested from the same forest that provided the trees for the restoration of Notre Dame in Paris. It's bottled at 55% ABV, and the nose has touches of caramel candy, dried fruits, honey, and a soft oakiness. The taste has notes of cinnamon, black pepper, caramel candy, dried fruits, and a hint of anise, and the finish is long and spicy with a touch of anise. I'm scoring the Bardstown Bourbon Company Cathedral French Oak Finish Bourbon a 93. I'll be adding these tasting notes to our searchable list of nearly 3,900 different whiskeys from all over the world. Check it out this week at whiskycast.com. Let's open up the WhiskyCast community app now and see what people are talking about this week. Had several comments on last week's WhiskyCast In-Depth feature with the folks from Elixir in San Francisco. Rick at the Whiskey Zone posted this comment in the app. Nice job on this week's WhiskyCast In-Depth on Elixir, Mark. As a local, it's my favorite go-to whiskey bar in the city. And I'll be sure to let you know if you did too good a job highlighting them if I can't get a seat at the bar next week. J.D. Hostutler posted this comment. Great job, Mark, as always. Makes me want to go to San Francisco just to check out this bar, especially the scotch. And Chrissy Hay responded on Facebook, I loved this place. Going to make sure we visit every time we go to San Francisco. Chris Bader posted this on Facebook, best old-fashioned in town. Finally, I shared the news about the Jack Daniel's 14-year-old in the app the other day. Chris Ratcliffe responded from the UK with this in the app. Sounds interesting. I hope these releases can help improve Jack Daniel's reputation among those who look down on it for old number 7. However, T. Cronin Moore is one who won't be buying the new whiskey. Here's what he said on Facebook. I'm not buying any Brown-Forman products after they scrapped their diversity and inclusivity policies. If you have a comment, suggestion, or a question, download the free WhiskyCast community app and join the conversation. You can also find us on Blue Sky, X, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast, and the email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the history, science, and people who make whiskey unique. Researchers at the University of Lincoln in the UK have found that rats have the ability to blind taste wine. Their goal was to see if rats can differentiate between complex odors without using language, since humans use language to compensate for having fewer functional olfactory receptors than other mammals do. The researchers trained the rats to expect a treat when a certain type of wine was presented. The researchers used Sauvignon Blanc and Riesling wines from different countries, and during the test, the rats were rated on whether they pressed a lever in response to the wine that had been associated with a treat during the training phase. The scientists found that the rats were able to generally tell the difference between Riesling and Sauvignon Blanc 94% of the time for wines that had been used in training, and 65% of the time for new wines introduced during the testing phase. Now, to test them on telling bourbons from scotches. If you have something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this episode of WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at whiskycast.com. That's also where you'll find the latest whiskey news, my tasting notes, the calendar of events, the whiskey photo of the week, and, of course, a complete archive of past episodes going all the way back to 2005. Get in touch with us, download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store, or find us on social media. We're on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast, and our email address is comments@whiskycast.com.
Dewar's Double Double 38-year-old blended malt has arrived, and it's a true gem for collectors. Secure a bottle, and you'll be adding a rare piece of history to your collection.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2025, and comes to you from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening.